Welcome to Divorced from Reality with Johnny Bardine.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Divorced from Reality with Johnny Bardine. I'm Matt Skye. Johnny is a dedicated attorney who has been serving the Tampa Bay community for over a decade. With a mission to help individuals and families through their most challenging times, Johnny provides compassionate, fierce advocacy in divorce, foreclosure, personal injury, and probate matters. Johnny, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be back. Thank you so much.
So let's jump in. Let's talk about why is it important to focus on the emotional and therapeutic aspects of family law?
Well, look, the broader issue is just that it's important to engage in self-care and to constantly think about your mental health and to do the things that are going to leave you better off instead of worse off. Whether you're in a divorce or not, you need to be conscientious about your mental health. Secondly, is you just need to understand the immense toll that a contentious litigation can have on your mental health, especially when it involves your family and the dissolution of a marriage.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot in the last episode, and it definitely seems like there's maybe people underestimate the emotional toll. But can you share with us some common emotional challenges clients face?
Yeah, so narrowing it down is a tough one, but one of them is just sort of this sense of not measuring up and of failure and of judgment from other people. I mean, if you're going through a divorce, you're now in a process in which there are people telling you whether you are or are not a good parent, whether you are or are not good with money. Apart from the disapproval of your spouse, you've got to deal with a judge and your own attorney and the other attorney. So there's a lot of people sort of pointing a finger at you during this process, and whether they're, maybe they're literally doing it or maybe that's your perception, but there's a lot of pressure that you're under when you're going through a divorce.
How do you prepare people for that? Because you're right. I think in a divorce proceeding, you're looking at something where people are being accused in ways they maybe never have been before.
Well, there are limits to preparation. So however I explained something to someone doesn't necessarily fully prepare them for how they're going to feel as you go through the process. But, you've got to listen to them and you got to be their advocate. So whatever they're going through, you got to be like, I'm on your team. I'm on your team. And so that in itself can have some wonders. And secondly, you're like, look, you need to protect your mental health here. So to the extent that you need to, you should engage in counseling or therapy right away. And then you need to start to rely on your network of family and friends to help you through this.
So on that point of therapeutic interventions, what types of interventions are available? What are beneficial for individuals going through these family law disputes?
As I said in the last episode, I tell my clients, you cannot make this divorce or whatever the issue is become your entire identity or the only thing you think about or the only thing you're interested in. So you need to cultivate or encourage some different stuff. So you need to get some hobbies. You need to make some plans to spend time with your friends and family. You need to do things that are not thinking about your divorce.
I know this is probably there's no official answer to this, but are there certain hobbies or activities that in your experience you've just seen help people more than others?
Yeah, I've had good experience with pickleball. Whatever's going to enrich your mind and body as you go through this and are not activities that are going to diminish you or cause any issues in the case is what you should focus on.
So for me, it would be avoiding golf or at least trying to take a more Zen approach to it.
Right.
But how do you incorporate therapeutic approaches into your practice when you're working with clients?
I think you need to have the approach as an attorney from the outset that you're here to leave these people better than they found it, and that you're only going to be involved for a short period of time. So if you can be a suture rather than a fissure, I think that's an important thing to communicate to clients, and to from the outset, for as early as you can during the case, talk to them about the toll that mental health can have, and then have a good hand-in-glove relationship with their mental health therapist or their mental health professionals as you move through the process.
So let's talk about collaboration with mental health professionals. We touched on this a little bit in our last episode. How do you collaborate with them and really address the emotional needs of your clients?
Well, the first practical concern is that there's some HIPAA-related questions and some privilege-related questions, and so you've got to get the authorization of your clients to be able to communicate with those mental health professionals. But the more sort of, I think, the broader view, what you're asking me about is look, is to schedule sort of some regular contact between your client and the mental health professional, and then some monthly check-ins amongst the three of us, the client, therapist, or counselor, and me, to see how things are going and how we need to adjust or address things to better support their mental health as we go through the legal process.
So obviously, without citing names or
Right.
keeping confidentiality, can you give any examples of where this collaboration led to a positive outcome?
Sure. I have a case in which my client was not enthused about the dissolution and he wanted to reconcile with his spouse. But what precipitated the dissolution, or the application for the dissolution, was some mental health issues that my client was going through. So he committed to going to counseling without my asking before I even met him, and was very committed to following those recommendations of the therapist. So we were able to reduce into writing sort of a mental health regimen for that, and which sort of paved the way for those two people to reconcile.
Johnny, can you tell us what advice you have for clients to help them manage their emotional well-being during these proceedings?
I tell my clients that they each day they need to do something that's going to make time for themselves, whether that's thinking and reflecting or journaling or meditating, that they need to engage in some physical activity or exercise for all the physiological reasons you need to do that, but also for the mental reasons of doing something that is solely about self-care. And third, it's like, look, leave the stress of the divorce and the legal stuff and the legal machinations to me. I'll handle that. But your job as we move through this process is to do what takes care of you, yourself, and what's best for your children and for whatever other interest you have that might be affected by this divorce. But I can handle the legal part if you handle yourself.
That must be a big weight lifted in and of itself, right? When someone knows that you're handling that side and they can just focus on themselves.
The process is overwhelming, and it's too much for one person to bear alone. So they need to know that they've got a team behind them. They need to know that they've got support. They need to know that they're not alone as they go through it. I think that's a big part of it. Like, people feel alone, like no one else in the world has ever gotten divorced before they have. And so if you can remind people that they're not alone, a lot of people have done this. And then I've been helping people through this process for a long time. I've gotten pretty good at it. Tends to be a pretty big weight lifted from them. Yeah.
Yeah, people are definitely not alone in this. How do you ensure that they feel heard throughout the legal process?
As I mentioned in the last episode, you've got to communicate clearly with them, bring them along in the process, let them know what's happening. And then on the litigation side, you've got to constantly have something that you have filed or that you're pursuing that are going to let them know that the case is being progressed and that seeks to exert some leverage over their interests so that you can, on the other side, try to settle the case.
And how does focusing on that emotional and therapeutic side produce better outcomes? And then also, what are those benefits long-term?
Perspective. You have to constantly weigh to your clients about the short-term gain versus long-term gain and the costs and benefits of resolving something in the near term or litigating it further. And so if you've got a client who you've worked with who is in a place with regard to the mental health in which they can make some better decisions, you get better outcomes. So if you start with a mentally healthy person, they're going to be able to make better decisions and you're going to get better outcomes. What
are those challenges and roadblocks you face when helping people with therapeutic approaches? How do you overcome those?
Unpredictability. You can only control what you can control. So you can only control your response to things or your preparation for things, but you don't know what the other person is going to do or where they're at with their mental health. And you certainly don't understand or know fully what a court can or will do. So you can have all the expectations that you want. You can do all the work on yourself that you want, but you can't control what other people are doing in this process.
Are there ways that our legal system could more effectively support the therapeutic needs of families and individuals during these disputes?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's some inherent challenges to enforcing those things or enacting those things. But yeah, I think our legal system could take a more therapeutic approach to these issues, and I've seen it over the last 15 years that I've done this. I've seen a dialing down of litigiousness with regard to both attorneys and what the court has a hand in, and an increase in folks trying to resolve an issue.
Why do you think we've seen that dialing down? Just curious.
Because it doesn't work. Even I've changed. So early in my career, I think I was a much more aggressive litigator and a much more disagreeable attorney, and I didn't get better results. And when I started to soften that approach or think about it in a different way, I've had happier clients and better outcomes.
So zooming out a little bit,
yeah.
What are your hopes for the future of family law in terms of incorporating emotional and therapeutic considerations like we discussed?
I hope that we do it. I hope that we continue to increase our understanding about sort of the long-term effects of this process on both the parties and their children and all the other ancillary and tertiary interests involved. And I hope that we continue to take a more macro view of the rippling effect of this kind of divorce, that it's not just this specific divorce, but it's what are we doing to support success generationally for this family, this or that family.
And how do you define success? I know that's sort of a broad question, but
first we have to understand how little control we have over certain circumstances. But what's important is how we're responding to those circumstances and what we're doing to make the best of it. So I think success is maximizing to the best of your ability your sphere of control.
For all the family law practitioners out there, what's your advice for implementing a more therapeutic approach?
Yeah. So fortunately, I can report that most other family law practitioners in my area don't need my advice. I've been fortunate lately to have a lot of good opposing counsels, and we're all sort of rowing in the same direction. But I think if I could impart any advice, it'd be like, let's communicate better with our clients because they're now treading water in an unfamiliar sea, and we need to do the best we can to get them through this process. And so part of that is to explain things more clearly and talk to them more transparently and let them in on this stuff. Because as I said in the last episode, like I've done a couple thousand of these, but most of my clients have only done one. And so they don't know what to expect or what it looks like.
Yeah, it's a big difference. Everyone feels theirs is the biggest one, and it makes sense because it is for them. Johnny, as we wrap on episode 2, if you had one major takeaway for listeners, what would that be? Keep
your head down. Do what you think is right. And then you don't know what the court's going to do or your ex-wife is going to do or your ex-husband is going to do. But you can predict what you're going to do. So just do your best to do the next right thing and communicate with me, and we'll get through this time.
I think it's a great point to wrap up on. Everybody, thanks for listening to Divorced from Reality with Johnny Bardine. For more information or to connect with Johnny, visit BardineLawFirm.com or find him on social media. Johnny, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.